What's up guys, RGT85 here, and today on the channel we're taking a look at Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 for the Nintendo Switch. Now these versions do not come out on the Nintendo Switch till the end of October, but for whatever reason Capcom decided to put up some demos of Resident Evil 5 and 6 in the Nintendo Switch eShop. At the time of the filming of this video, they were not up in the North American eShop, which I thought was kind of weird. I actually got these from the Australian eShop, but they may be up in the North American eShop by now. But obviously these games were kind of interesting. In typical Capcom fashion, there of course is controversy because of the pricing of these games. You can get a physical edition of Resident Evil 5 and 6 that includes Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 4 is actually the game that is on the cartridge. Now the physical edition of this game I believe is $60, so you're getting 3 games for $60, so $20 a piece, which is very reasonable to me. I don't think that these games should be any more than $20 a piece, and I think that's a pretty decent value. But if you get the digital versions of these games, they are $30 a piece. So it's just typical Capcom crap. Like, I don't understand like what goes through their mind when they're pricing stuff, especially on the Nintendo Switch. We saw this with the Resident Evil games, Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 4. They were $30 a piece. So I don't know. It's just so stupid to me, but you know, Capcom's gonna Capcom. But Resident Evil 5, admittedly, is a game that I don't really remember all that much of. I remember playing it on the Xbox 360 when it first came out. Me and my old housemate played it together, and we beat the game, but I don't really remember a whole hell of a lot about it. Resident Evil 6, of course, is a completely different story. We'll talk about that game when we get to it. A very, very strange game. I played that on the PS3. I definitely remember a lot of that. But this was a game that, admittedly, I wasn't a huge fan of it when it first came out, but I grew to love it. Obviously, one of the big additions of this game was the partner system. So in this game, you can see here, I am playing as Chris, and I have a partner. Her name is Sheva, and basically that was the big draw to this game, was you could play co-op. You could play local co-op, or you could play online co-op. And of course, all of that is still in the Nintendo Switch version of the game. So you can do drop-in, drop-out co-op with randoms, you could play with friends, and of course, you could just play local co-op, or you could play by yourself like I am doing right now. We gotta get out of here. I'm getting a little bit claustrophobic. There are too many people in here. This dude is breaking down the door. So yeah, he's busting through the window, busting through the wall. But that was the big addition to this game. It still feels a bit like Resident Evil 4. I would say it plays a little bit quicker though. You know, everything feels a little bit more responsive than Resident Evil 4, and I feel like maybe I didn't give this game a full shake back at that time. During that time frame, I preferred the classic Resident Evil style. I did appreciate Resident Evil 4 for what it was, especially the Wii version because of the gyro controls. But yeah, you know, like I said, I don't really remember a whole hell of a lot about this game. You can see that there are achievements in this game, so that's kind of cool if you enjoy, you know, achievements and things of that nature. But you can see, I think this version of the game is running very well. It definitely looks, you know, to my untrained eye, it definitely looks more like the PS4 and the Xbox One versions that came out, more so than just a straight Xbox 360 port, which is good. It shows that they did, you know, a little bit of time and effort into this game. So that's a good thing. The gunplay still feels nice. I really enjoyed some of the open areas of this game as well. I remember playing this area in Resident Evil Mercenaries. You remember Resident Evil Mercenaries? That's how much of a Resident Evil fan I was back in the day. I would buy anything Resident Evil related. Resident Evil Mercenaries was an early 3DS title that was like it was small segments of Resident Evil stuff, and admittedly wasn't all that fun. This dude is he's very Nemesis-like. He is just chasing us. He's straight up chasing us down. Let's go ahead and so now we got to help the teammate. And that's one thing that kind of sucks about this game is the teammate aspect when you're playing with just AI, because the AI isn't all that great. Ooh, that was a good shot, and the doors busting down and stuff. This is a fun game. You know, is it worth $30? That's kind of tough. I probably will wait for it to go down to $20, or maybe I'll pick up the physical edition, even though I already own Resident Evil 4, which was a bit of a disappointment. There are no gyro controls in this game, but that was not something that was included in any version of the game, so I'm not really going to hold that against it. I did feel like in Resident Evil 4 they should have included the gyro controls that were in the Wii version of the game. You know, it just sort of made sense to me. It would have made the Switch version stand out and maybe justify a little bit more of that price point. Oops, I hit the wrong button, damn it. Still got time. Uppercut, you bitch. And, you know, this game does get a bit off the rails towards the end of it. There are some really big, you know, sort of action segments that would just become like standard place in Resident Evil 6 and just make that game a nightmare. I can't wait to talk about that game. But, you know, this is a solid game. This is definitely a solid game and probably the better of the two Resident Evil games that we have available to us coming out on the Nintendo Switch. You can see my teammate is actually helping me, so that's kind of nice. We got some first aid sprays that we need to use. We also have some green herbs. Let's try to get somewhere kind of safe. That wasn't a safe spot. Save me. Save me. We got to get out of here, man. I'm getting, there's too many dudes around here. I'm getting all claustrophobic. Heal both of us. I'm dying again. All right, so this is Resident Evil 5. Obviously, I'm not going to play through the whole demo or anything like that. I just wanted to see the performance of the game. I wanted to see how it ran. And admittedly, it's running pretty good on the Nintendo Switch. Now it's time to take a look at Resident Evil 6, which, I mean, that game just has so many problems. So let's jump into the world of Resident Evil 6. And now we have Resident Evil 6, the bastard of the Resident Evil franchise. If you're a younger gamer, you might not understand why Resident Evil 6 gets such a bad reputation, but I will tell you guys why in this video. But you can see here, it is Resident Evil 6, and this really was a time when Capcom they didn't know what to do with their properties. They didn't really know what to do with their franchises, and it shows because this game is like a chili pot. You know, they threw in all of the leftovers, they threw in everything that they had learned through game development over the years and made this game. And unfortunately, that doesn't make for a great Resident Evil game. I don't think it's necessarily horrible as an action game. I think there are some redeeming qualities of it, but it's just they tried to do way too much with this game. They wanted, you can see just like look at how Chris runs here. Like look at the speed. Is this Gears of War or is it Resident Evil? And there are multiple characters that you play as. Each of them feel unique. Each of them feel different. They have their own play styles and stuff like that. But, you know, that's kind of the problem with the game. It's sort of all over the place. There's action, there's survival horror, and it just doesn't blend together all that well. And that's what makes this such a tough game. I think as a standalone title, if this wasn't a Resident Evil title, it might not have been that negatively received. I think people would have been a bit more open-minded towards it. But just as a Resident Evil title, it's not what people wanted. It, of course, caused the reboot for the franchise with Resident Evil 7, which, you know, admittedly is a good thing because Resident Evil 7 really put Capcom back on track as far as the Resident Evil games are concerned. I will say that the Switch version of this game, you know, it looks pretty good. It's definitely, you know, a last generation game, but I think it looks pretty solid. It looks pretty clean. The textures look pretty good for the most part. There are a few, you know, low res textures. It's obviously upscaling a last generation game, so you can't expect all that much. Now, the game does offer the same sort of co-op system that Resident Evil 5 does. So you can play with a friend either in local mode or online mode. Look at these dudes. They look like juggalos on steroids. You know, it does have that same co-op system, so you can play locally with a friend. You can play online as well. If you hate your friends, I guess. I don't know. It's not the worst game ever. It's just people wanted a great Resident Evil game. You know, Resident Evil 4 really put the franchise in another direction. Resident Evil 5 really sort of improved upon some of the stuff in Resident Evil 4. It wasn't quite as memorable as Resident Evil 4, but it was a solid game and definitely a step in the right direction for the Resident Evil franchise. And then we got this game. It was just so bizarre. You know, quick time events and big action segments. It was like a Hollywood blockbuster movie more so than a Resident Evil experience. But I do think that it is a game eventually worth checking out. $30 for this game is admittedly way too much, especially in 2019. If this game was around, you know, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, maybe even 20 bucks, I guess. But if it was cheaper, you know, I would wait for a sale for this game unless you're just absolutely morbidly curious, or pick up the physical edition and get all the games for $20 each if you haven't picked up the other games in the franchise. I do think Resident Evil 5 is the better of the two games. I definitely think you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck with that game. And this game does also have the achievements as well. We saw that there was achievements in Resident Evil 5. Now we're in more of an open area that sort of feels like, you know, a Resident Evil 5 style area, but it's just not done as well. It's not done as well as those games. And you could definitely see, you know, there's a lack of direction with this game. It's fun, kind of, but, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of it in the world. Oh God, get away from me. I do like the melee system though. The melee system is actually tied into an actual button, so you don't have to switch, or at least for Chris, you don't have to switch, you know, hit like a thing for like your knife attack or whatever. You can just do it right on the fly, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, just not a super enjoyable game. There's too many issues with it as far as the game direction is concerned. But the Switch version, you know, it's not bad. If you've never played it before, I would say wait for a sale for this version of the game. But these are just my initial thoughts on Resident Evil 5 and 6 for the Nintendo Switch. I'm surprised that Capcom did a demo for these, but I'm glad they did because, you know, admittedly I wanted to check them out. So those are my thoughts on it. Let me know in the comment section down below if you plan on picking up either of these games, either 5 or 6, or picking up the physical edition and getting all 3 of them for $60. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We are doing a Nintendo Switch Lite giveaway. I keep talking as I'm playing the game. I don't know. It's a little bit fun. It's a little bit fun. We are doing a Nintendo Switch Lite giveaway though, so be sure to enter that. It'll be in the pinned comment in the comment section down below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next video. I hate these segments so much. I hate them so much. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.